So we worked on test out till about 10:30. Hopefully y'all are finishing up if you're on anything right now. And we're going to bring up our server 3. On Wednesday, we brought it up and logged in, changed the password, and we just had a command prompt with a blinky cursor. And y'all run away scared and went to lunch. And then you came back and it's still there. So this little hint, sconfig or server config or system config, whatever you want to call sconfig, is a menu type system allow us to finish up setting up a core only Windows server. And very similar to the local server link that we clicked on in Server Manager and set the time zone, computer name and stuff, you find sconfig gives you very similar options. So as I launch server 3, a few tips: if you accidentally close down your command prompt window and you've got a black screen, before we get any further, it's really common to do a mistake. And you're like, what do I do now? There's no start menu. Windows R doesn't work. There's no run command. What do I do? Control Shift Escape brings up a task manager window. That works. More details allows you to, well, see the full task manager, and you can relaunch the command prompt from the file menu, run new task command, and you can type CMD and relaunch your command prompt. Pretty cool. So Control Shift Escape is the key combination on Windows machines. Been there for a long time to bring up Task Manager. Task Manager is one of the few graphical tools that do start up on server core and allows you to get back into command prompt. If you accidentally type exit too many times or hit the X button, that's very useful to know. Okay, so I've logged in. I think we set the password on Wednesday. Some of you have already played with sconfig. So if you run, this looks pretty much all the questions that were shown in Server Manager. So how do I access changing the computer name? Press 2. I almost said press 1, but if I actually read the screen, yeah, 2. Computer name. Hit enter. Enter a new computer name. Don't entering anything is the same thing as typing cancel. So server 3. I don't want to restart just yet. I want to go ahead and make some more changes. The computer name won't show, it'll redisplay the menu, but it doesn't show the updated computer name. It won't do that till we restart the computer. Let's move on. What else did I say next? And here we need to set the IP address up. Where do you think you go for the IP address? 8 for networking. What did you do? Those that worked ahead, what did you do here? So it says select network adapter, index number, and we show that we have an index number and only one adapter. It's pretty simple, just one. We enter. We need a static address to be set up. So looking here, set the network adapter address to 1 again. And now at the bottom of the screen, we can select and have D inside of parentheses for DHCP, and they have S inside of parentheses for static IP. That probably means I need either type of D or an S right here to choose static or DHCP. And if you're typing in your own address, you're selecting static. So S. Now it says set static IP. Enter static IP address. I'm pretty sure we use .5 in this class. Just to make sure I'm not crazy, I'll click on one of these other servers and there's a networking tab. So here in the Hyper-V Manager, I'll bring it up so you can see it from the back. I clicked on server 1 and right down here, there's a networking tab I can click on. It shows me the IP address. As long as it's a Windows Hyper-V machine, it'll show you the network addressing. So yeah, we are in .5. 192.168.5.3. I hit enter. Enter the subnet mask. Blank equals entering 255.255.255.0. Well, that's the subnet mask we're using, so I don't have to type. It tells me if I press enter, it's going to enter that for me. Very helpful. Enter. Enter a gateway. We have internal networking. Do we have a router? No. We have no router, so we have no gateway to worry with. Pretty rare you don't have a gateway, but for this lab, we don't have any gateway. So enter. The DNS servers must be set. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4. Set DNS servers is number 2. Enter the preferred DNS server. 192.168.5 dots and our preferred. I told you that on Wednesday that everybody be like a .1 for the preferred and a .2 for the alternate. Preferred set. I'll hit OK. Alternate 192.168.5.2. Alternate set. Pretty cool. Did y'all get those that worked ahead? Did you set the IP okay? Definitely pretty good class. It's like not ever seen it before. And like, yeah, I can follow directions, poke around. So if you're able to do that by yourself, with those light instructions I had, probably have picked the correct career field. I'm going to go number 4 here. Return to main menu. Have anything else? Central time. Which is number 9, date and time. So that does bring up a graphical tool. Just change it to for -6. But how many -6s are there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different -6s. And they each have a different rule for daylight savings time. And make sure you pick the one that we're in Chicago, United States. If you ever see another operating system, it'll be Central Time or say Chicago time. I've been to O'Hare, but not really walked around. I did walk in Chicago. Yes, I walked from one terminal across to the other terminal to get into a plane. So yeah, I did walk in Chicago. So click OK. And OK. So our time zone is set. Did y'all do anything extra? Windows activation is another component that we could do. I'm going to go hit number 11. And number 2 or number 3, install a product key. Yeah, number 3, we need to install a product key first. So it can be kind of confusing. There's a number 2 and a number 3 there to activate Windows or install a product key. Number 2 is to activate it if you've already got a product key in. Number 3 kind of does both at the same time. So we run number 3. This is the one that was a little tricky. Enter a product key. What did we do for the product key? The automatic virtual machine activation keys. We searched for it and copied it out of Google. So that was that TNK 62 key underneath the Windows Server 2019 on Google. So it's best to do that and copy it and not try to type. So what, Control V? No, if Control V doesn't work, clipboard and type clipboard text should work. So I don't know why my Control V didn't work, but it didn't. So we go to clipboard and type clipboard text. It could be if you're in enhanced session mode versus if you're in basic mode. Some of these, if it asks for the screen resolution and you had to click something for screen resolution, Control V and stuff works a lot better than if it didn't ask. It can be toggled by the last icon in your button bar in your Hyper-V window. But I do like just go clipboard and type clipboard text, works. So hit OK. It's going to install the product key. Product key installed successfully. And it will activate it automatically. There's not really need to do anything else. I'm just going to exit that screen. And I can return back to the main menu, number 4. Having remote desktop access to servers, if your servers are on a network that's secured away from the internet, is an okay thing. For production, you might even have your servers on a VLAN and only allow certain ports into that VLAN. So you might even block remote desktop, or if you're an IT staff, you have to be on a PC that's inside that VLAN, inside that firewall. And it's good to have remote desktop turned on but protected by a firewall, only letting certain PCs in. So we're going to go ahead and turn that on. And remote desktop is number 7. We can enable it with an E. And it gives us 2 other options. Do you want to be more secure or less secure? You pretty much always want to be more secure. So number 1, err on the side of more secure. And if it doesn't work, then you can lower security if you need to. Always try to be at the most secure level. And as I said, I would put these on a VLAN and only allow certain ports through, like 445, 384. Some of the Active Directory ports need to be open, DNS stuff. I'd block certain things, 3389 for remote desktop, unless I was inside the VLAN. I think that's about everything. We need to restart the computer so the name takes effect. Did anybody join it to the domain yet? So I'll restart, and after the restart, you can join it to the domain. So Control-Alt-Delete, log back in, type sconfig again. I'm very grateful that they created this tool. And they didn't have to figure out how to use the DOS commands and PowerShell commands to configure everything. It'd been possible, but this is a lot easier to just handheld through it. Okay, number 1 for workgroup domain is server 3. You can change server 3. It's not going to be a domain controller. So if you screw the name up, it can change it later on. Make sure it's not Seaver. My afternoon class, I had somebody make Seaver. When I went around and was grading, the lab 1 install. Nope, you've got Seaver 1 and server 2. Fix your Seaver 1. Okay. Workgroup or domain will be a domain. Notice it's not case sensitive. Microsoft always uppercases anything you type in before it's executed at a command prompt. It's not like Linux. If you took operating systems, Linux was case sensitive. It did not uppercase everything you typed in. It read it as you typed it. But Windows pretty forgiving because it makes all the commands being shouted at itself. So. Let's type the condoso.com domain. Top administrator and pass 1, 2, 3, 4, hit enter. Want to change the computer name before restarting? No, I've already done that. Restart? Sure. And just like when we joined server 2 to the network, we joined this one to the network, it's going to default us going to the local server, local administrator account. So when I hit Control-Delete, I don't want to log in anymore as administrator. I want to be administrator into the Contoso domain. So if I read my screen, I can hit enter for administrator, escape to switch users and sign in methods. Escape. Escape again. I have seen where that didn't work. After hitting escape a couple of times, it did not go to this screen. And what I had to do is just log into the local admin, run sconfig, and hit option like 11, 12, or whatever to log off. And then it would give me the ability to switch users.
Once you do there again, I hit escape.
You have to escape twice. And if it doesn't go here, log in as the regular administrator again, run sconfig and type the number for log out. And then you'll be able to Control-Alt-Delete and escape to this point. So I'm going to other user.
It says it looks like Windows didn't load correctly. If you'd like to restart and restart my PC, you can restart it.
Yeah. And notice as I type administrator, the sign on to Contoso changes to server 3. So I have to type Contoso at contoso.com. Although there's not major point in logging in, because here I'm just stuck back at the command prompt again. I could issue PowerShell and some stuff and do some configuration, and we'll likely do some things here on this command prompt, but want to break at this time. When we come back from break, we'll look at some tools that we can use to connect graphically in C server 3. We'll also run into some problems with the default firewall settings being on for server 3. And look at some different ways to manage the firewall. We'll probably start off with using PowerShell and looking at the firewall settings through command prompts, opening up some of the firewall settings. It's going to be kind of gross, terrible command stuff, but we'll look at it a little bit. And it may be next week before we look at using some of the graphical ways to push configurations, firewall settings to server 3. Let's take a break.
So it's saying press Control-Delete to unlock, but when I do that, it
So we've logged in, Zoom in class here after break, and we logged in as the domain admin to server 3, but we just got a command prompt and the blinky cursor again. And we've done about everything we can with sconfig. So now let's look at what we can do with server 3 with our client. So we joined it to the domain, so we will have some client server centralized administration capabilities. For now, I'm just going to close out of server 3 and bring up server 1.
How do I get back into the server manager?
It's under the start menu. It's a tile that's normally pinned there. You can also the search magnifying glass is an easy way to find stuff too. So we're in server manager. And I want you to click on all servers. How many servers do you see? Just one. If you open up Active Directory users and computers tool, you see server 3 under computers. And if you look under domain controllers, you'll see server 1 and 2. Server manager only displaying server 1 at this time. Let's do something while we're in here. What did I say you shouldn't really see under computers? You shouldn't see computers under computers, right? Unless you just joined it to the domain, which we did. And we should move the machine out from computers once we've joined it to its final resting place. Let's move ours to member servers. You can drag and drop it just like you can files. And now it's under member servers. Sweet. We'll be able to control it when we learn about group policy at some point in time. Okay, I'm going to close down Active Directory users and computers after I've successfully moved server 3. Yeah, you just hit OK. It gives everybody a warning. Yes or OK or whatever. Basically, if you move objects around, it's warning you that if you do have group policies configuration set, that they will pick up different policies, and it might have some drastic effects on that system or person. Okay, how do you think I could get other servers in here to manage? What? Right click on all servers, add server. You could also go under manage and add server. I am safe for just clicking find now and finding everything. If I was at an actual production network, a larger place like UAMS that has 28,000 objects inside of Active Directory, that would not be something I just want to find everything, because it might take 30 minutes to an hour and run out of memory trying to display everything, crash my machine. And so I would probably start trying to type part of a name. Okay, well, we already have server 1, but I don't have server 2. What do you think I need to do? Click an arrow or double click it. 2 different ways. Should have typed my server in all uppercase when I created it. And Okay.
Get a target name resolution or.
Click the refresh at the top and see what happens.
Yeah.
Why did you use server III?
I wasn't thinking.
Go bring up server 3 again. Let's look at your S config on it. And go to number 8. And hit 192s, 168s, 5 and a 1. That looks okay. Let's go to number 4. Turn to main menu. You can rename it, but I would probably say rename it. Let's do server 3. Yeah, you needed to restart it. Hit 13 to restart. We'll go and log back in, and now go check server manager. Do a refresh on server manager and see. Wrong server manager. Right click and remove it. And then add it back in.
I don't know why it's still messed up. It's regular on my screen.
There we go. I don't think the name had anything to do with it. Mostly just it having to be restarted. I think fixed the issue. But you were different. You had to do something odd. But your oddness should not have. That should not have been the issue. I think just to restart would have fixed it.
It doesn't match, it would work.
So yeah, if all else fails, it's a kind of the default. Is it plugged in and powered on? Yep. Okay. Have you restarted it lately? No. Yes. Yes, I restarted it lately. And then you go look, it's been up for 80 days. You have not restarted this lately. You've been putting it to sleep and taking it out of sleep. That's not putting it. Okay, so now we have all 3 servers in the list. Well, that's pretty cool. Check out what happens now if you go to manage and add roles and features. As you run this tool, you now have all 3 that you can choose to run a wizard on, this dialog box on. So that's neat. I could add a role to any of the servers if I clicked on them. If I click on server 3 and hit next, it gives me this list of roles. It doesn't even take up the whole screen. If I go previous, click on server 2 and go next. I got a couple of more. I got a scroll bar, but don't really have to scroll. I got about 2 more options than I had with the core. I'm not sure what those were. What's different? I used to know. Two things are missing. What are they? Nope, Hyper-V is there. I'm going to go through directory. Fax server and network policy. So fax server and network policy are the difference. Apparently the fax server has to be graphical. And the network policy apparently has to be graphical. I'm going to cancel, not add anything. So that's pretty cool. We can work on all three servers. And like I said, this server manager can be installed on a Windows 10 or Windows 11 machine. So you could add in your servers and be sitting on your laptop and controlling them. Let's right click on server 3 and look at the different options. So our context menu, we've got a couple of options. What happens if we right click on one of the other servers? There's a whole lot more tools that pop up. Why? Well, one thing is we've got role services for Active Directory and DNS and some other stuff installed. And it detects that server manager, communicates with the server and figures out what's on it. And so when you right click, it'll let you manage those services. Let's go back to right clicking server 3. Open up computer management. Is anything happening?
I just tried to do it again and it said, computer server 3 cannot be managed. Verify that the network path is correct.
It works if you do that, but you don't have anything on.
Yeah, but it's blank. Server 2 does connect, and I can see some things in server 2. Not everything. Some things are locked out. It's because there's a firewall. So a few things in server 2, because server 1 and server 2 are running Active Directory, and there's certain things that has to be replicated and open between them. I do have some tools that are available. But server 3 didn't let me access computer management. Let's check out remote desktop connection because we did enable that. Let's see if this works. Should have punched a hole through the firewall, but should and what Microsoft does is two different stories. It did. Cool. what a desktop. Got a command prompt window. Well, that's kind of useless. I'm going to run sconfig because I am logged in. I'm going to log off. That also closes down the remote desktop session. Let's go ahead and dive into PowerShell. I'll right click server 3. I have a PowerShell that I can get to. And it's probably not firewalled. Let's see if I can bump the size up a little bit on my screen. Make it a little easier for you to see. So yeah, I'm on server 3. How do I know? How do I know I'm on server 3?
I don't know. It's probably not obvious on the left side.
That's obviously says server 3 on the left side. So I'm going to do a change directory and space whack or backslash just to get my cursor over a little bit further so I have more room to see what I'm doing. And PowerShell looks like a command prompt. It is a command prompt. It's more modern. There's things called commandlets in PowerShell, where there's a verb, a minus sign, and then a noun. One of the most common verbs, 2 verbs that you have in PowerShell are get, to get information, and then set, to make a change. So you can pull out information out of the computer, look at it, and then you can change the verb to set to change what you see on the screen. And there's lots of commandlets out there. And it's no easy task to just get comfortable and know PowerShell without just working with it for a couple of years and starting getting used to common commandlets because, well, you use them an awful lot. You still run into times where like, what PowerShell commandlet will do whatever, and you start reading Google. We need to check out the firewall, and I want to view information about the firewall. So get would probably be a verb that I would want to use because I want to view stuff. I'm going to get something out of the screen with the minus. And then the verb. This is where I'd have to go Google and look up what PowerShell command shows me firewall rules. It's net firewall rule. You can also tab complete, and if it uppercases it, you know you spelled it correctly. When you tab, it will take about 3, 4, 5 seconds, depending on the speed of your machine, to intelligently scan through all the commandlets that it knows about, finalize it. Go ahead and hit enter. This will be fun. Cool. Okay. I've seen where that it's got firewalled off the remote. No, I didn't see that. It went past too quick. Y'all look at me like you didn't read it that quick, Mr. Goodman. No. Each firewall rule contains a huge chunk of information. For those that you're taking database right before this, you can look at each one of these as attributes and then followed with the information. So each one of these blocks here that I'm highlighting is a row or tuple. So that whole highlighted area is a row of information. It's not displayed in a row, it's up and down, but name, display name, description, display group, group, enable, profile, platform, all of those are column headings or attributes in a table. And I don't really care about seeing everything on all the firewall rules. Some applications require inbound and outbound rules, and some applications have more than one port and runs on TCP or UDP or both. And sometimes it's better to look at a group, a display group. So if you got a service like FTP that runs on port 20 and 21, we studied that in Cisco, although that's, don't use FTP for anything anymore. It's too hackable and you can inject viruses and stuff. Instead of having it show up for, FTP 21, FTP 20, you could probably just see a group and it be called FTP that spans across both of those port numbers. That'll help shrink stuff down. So I want to just the grouping of the applications. And I want to know if the firewall is open or not. And that's enable. I just know that because I've studied this information and figured out that if it's false, that means it's being blocked. False, you can't come into the computer. If it's true, yes, the port's open and you can come in. Let's see if we can narrow down our output. I cleared the screen. I hit my up arrow a couple times, so I didn't have to retype get net firewall rule. Up arrow is really nice, brings back commands. If you're Cisco, up arrow key works in Cisco routers. If you just, I don't know if you played with operating systems. Some of you probably already took that class. If you're taking it now, then yeah, the up arrow key, similar, tab complete. We have space. And those in database class, you might remember we did select star from a table. Well, I'm going to use kind of something really similar to that. I'm going to use a pipe symbol. Pipe is shift of the whack or backslash key. Look underneath your backspace. Well, don't need accessibility. You held a key down for an excessive amount of time. I know, I do that. Shift backslash key, puts a little pipe up and down, straight bar. It's called a pipe because people thought it was a pipe that you carried around and beat people with. So. What that does is going to take all of the output of the get net firewall rule and store it into RAM and then pass it to something else. We're going to pass it to select. We haven't really selected particular attributes in our database class. Some of you aren't in that class, but we're going to select particular attributes. I want to select display group, comma, space, enabled, or is it enabled? I think it's enabled with the D. Yeah. So I only want to see those two. My output will become a lot more readable now than what I've seen before. It just overloaded me with information. So I'm going to narrow that down. So I'm not overloaded and just select the display group name and the enabled or not. As I hit enter, it's a lot more manageable for my brain to comprehend what's going on. And I see most of you have accomplished that. Good. I can see what's set to true, meaning those services are being allowed through the server 3's local firewall. I see some things here that have remote in them that are blocked. Remote service management is blocked. Remote event log management is blocked. Remote volume management is blocked. Most all of this stuff that has remote in it except for the legacy remote desktop stuff.
There's two that are false on. Regular branch cache.
Yep, that's the legacy one. They should probably remain off, but so a lot of those remote stuff and another Windows management instrumentation is very, very useful in controlling systems on your network, allowing you to see what applications are installed, allowing you to see like what BIOS version the computer is running. The Windows management instrumentation really lets you do a lot of snooping around your corporate PCs and controlling them. It's useful for that to be on, at least for your IP addresses that are within your domain, like a 192.168.5 network. You at least want to be on for that, not for like public or anybody else coming in. So we said Git is for viewing stuff. What did I say was for changing stuff? Set. So all I have to do is change the G to an S. And now I've using a new commandlet that can make some changes. I would, of course, read this on a Microsoft website somewhere. I could use the help command inside of here and try to read it, but I typically prefer just looking at it in a web page form instead of looking at it on the screen. It's a little bit easier for me to scroll up and down and highlight text and, you know, like put it in Microsoft Word or Notepad and fix it the way that I need it to run and paste the command in here. But I know a lot of these commands, so set -net firewall rule dash profile. And I know a Windows firewall runs on domain, private, or public. Those are the different profiles that'll run on. So I want this to only work on domain. That will help kind of limit it to domain attached computers and not let non-domain attached computers connect. So set net firewall rule dash profile domain dash display group. I can just type DIS and I can hit tab until it gets to display group. That's how I type so fast. I use my tab complete cycle through stuff. I got to get the first few letters in. I wouldn't want to just type in set dash and hit tab because there's probably 150 set commands. That'd be kind of obnoxious, but set dash net fire and hit tab until I get would work. But here, display group, I'm going to put in asterisk remote asterisk anything that's got remote in it. I'm kind of shotgunning this a little bit. I'm going to open up remote no matter what. You really shouldn't do this in production. You should go pick and choose, and we'll use another method instead of using the PowerShell command. Probably a better method. We're using a group policy to push out settings to say all of the servers under member servers at one time. This way you would have to do it individually or write a script to read all the names and tell it to execute this command on each computer individually. A little cumbersome. Dash enabled. True. If you hit enter and you get a prompt, that means it probably worked correctly. If you get red, read the red, it probably tells you mistyped something. It's like, I don't understand dash enable. And then you look and realize, oh, it's supposed to be enabled. Let's read somebody's red. Here's a good one. The term net firewall address filter rule. Yeah. Set net firewall rule. Set net for F. You got the I and E R. You spelled fire. Firewall. Firewall rule. Fear me. But the red does sometimes let you know what's going on. Sometimes a little cryptic, but fully reading error messages helps. I also want to hit my up arrow key, and I want to change this to WMI instead of remote, and hit enter. So yeah, that is a pretty good shotgun approach to things. Before you open firewall rules, you really want to read. It might not be just a short 1 hour process of fixing the firewall. You might be spending a half a day testing and closing and opening ports to be as secure as possible. I'm going to hit my up arrow key until we get back to the get command and review to see if anything went to true that was false before. Do you notice anything different? So yeah, the very bottom WMI is true. Remote service management is true. So a lot of true stuff this time around. If we check out server one, oh, we are on server one. If I minimize the PowerShell remote window and see my server manager, I can retry connecting to computer management, see if I have any more luck this time. Did we? So yes, a lot of these tools, the remote event viewer, users and groups, device manager, I think may still be firewalled off. Remote performance monitor and stuff like that. Yeah, those were all false before. So what we just did in PowerShell, we did see verb dash noun. That's all the key combination stuff. And then they have arguments, those switches, those dash and names to provide extra, information into the commandlet. That is PowerShell. You normally don't sit and just raw type PowerShell commands like that at a prompt. You do it sometimes. A lot of times it's because you're looking at a web page and it's telling you, hey, you can issue this PowerShell command, and you copy and put it in Notepad, make some changes so the computer name and folder name, file name and stuff matches what's on your computer and execute it that way. More of what you're doing with PowerShell is you're using an editor like Visual Studio Code or the Microsoft PowerShell integrated scripting environment. It's a graphical tool that you're writing multiple lines of code to run PowerShell and connect to, say, hundreds of thousands of computers and do something. Or connecting to lots of user accounts and doing something. It's been several years, but I had a student that before he came through the LAN class, he got a job over the summer in IT here on campus, and something had to be changed on all the student accounts. So he spent the entire summer going to each account and making a change. And then, at the end of the day, keep track of which student he got to, come back the next day. He spent pretty much the entire summer, a month and a half doing that to get through all the accounts. I was like, what in the heck? Why would they make you do that? They must not have had any other job for you to do. And I can't believe that in IT. There's always something to do. I showed him in, I think, 3 or 4 lines of PowerShell code, how that he could have just wrote 3 or 4 lines, hit play, and been done with it. It's like, you could have been done with this in 30 minutes, 5 minutes. So we'll look at some more PowerShell stuff, how it can loop later on in the semester. But it's scripting. It's not application development, it's scripting. So PowerShell is something you should continuously look at. You'll see it in your IT career. And Python is another scripting language. Those are 2 you should be familiar with. They're out there, they're being used right now, and more as the years roll on, for more central management, the need for IT staff to learn some basic scripting, coding, it's almost a must now. Years ago, there's light coding, there's just a lot more click and do stuff, but really to move up in a career, get off the help desk job, you really have to get up into knowing a little bit of scripting. That course acknowledgement quiz that you take in Canvas, a student I taught, again, years ago working for IT, he wrote a large PowerShell script that places that in every single class at the beginning of the semester, because it's required. So it's an automated process, and you use PowerShell for it. It's pretty neat. Okay, I believe we'll call that a day.